Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Halloween Week. I hope you're enjoying the series so far. If you are, please remember to hit that subscribe button down below. And let's go ahead and get into today's video. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. So in researching all of these cases, there are a lot of things that have happened on Halloween night. However, I came across a few different cases that were very cut and dry. Like, there are no twists and turns, there are no long drawn out investigations, but I still think they're interesting and I still kind of wanted to talk about them. I know most of the cases I talked about this week don't have very much information, but these actually have even less information. So I figured I would talk about 4 of those cases today and just give them a little bit of spotlight because they still matter. These are still terrible things that happen to people on Halloween night, and I still think they deserve a little spotlight. So let's go ahead and dive into these 4 very cut and dry cases. Halloween night, 1998, 21-year-old Carl Jackson was driving with his girlfriend to pick up her son at a Halloween party. While driving, they encountered a group of basically hooligans, hoodlums, whatever you want to call them, and they started throwing eggs at Carl's car. So he stopped the car, he got out, and he yelled at them to stop, which they did. And so he got back into his car and started driving away. However, unbeknownst to him, one of those hooligans got into his own car and started following them. At some point, Carl stopped his car, and the other person behind him, Curtis Sterling, exited his own car, walked up to Carl's window, and shot 1 bullet into his head, killing him instantly. Thankfully, his fiancée was unharmed, and I do not believe her son was in the car at this point. Curtis Sterling turned himself in just a few days later and was later sentenced to 20 years in prison. Every year on Halloween, Curtis receives a card from Carl's mother saying, "I'm glad you're still there." Next, we'll talk about the insane reasoning behind 55-year-old Liddell Peoples murdering his girlfriend. Maria Adams was 49 years old when she was stabbed to death October 31st, 2011. Liddell became enraged over a missing bag of Halloween candy and blamed Maria for stealing it. The fight that ensued from this quickly got physical. Maria threw a plate at Liddell, which ended up shattering and cutting him just above the eye. And it was at this point that he went to the kitchen, got multiple different knives, and attacked her. Maria later died in the hospital from her injuries, and Liddell was sentenced to 30 years in prison for the attack. Our next story is about Tony Bagley. Tony was 7 years old when he went out trick-or-treating with his family October 31st, 1994 in North Las Vegas. The family was ambushed by a gunman who either came around the corner or jumped out of the bushes. Both were mentioned. I couldn't really track down which was the correct thing, but either way, he opened fired on the family. The bullets hit Tony, his sister, his mother, and his aunt. All of them survived except for Tony. The only description that witnesses could give of this gunman was that he was tall, African American, and wearing dark clothing. Years later, after Tony's father was arrested for an unrelated crime, family members came forward to say that they suspected that his murder was a part of a revenge plot due to his father's drug connections. However, these claims have never been substantiated. The case was later aired on America's Most Wanted, which at the time was one of the most watched TV shows in the country. Police really hoped that the national coverage would bring in new leads. However, it did not bring in any new information. They barely got any calls. His case is still unsolved to this day, and police are nowhere near closer to a suspect than they were 25 years ago. And finally, I would like to talk about a man named Quentin Patrick. Quentin was 22 years old and a convicted drug dealer in the Sumter, South Carolina area in 2008. Halloween night 2008, 12-year-old TJ Darasaw, his 9-year-old brother, and his stepfather went out trick-or-treating when they came to the home of Quentin Patrick. TJ knocked on the door, excitedly awaiting for his Halloween candy. However, inside, Quentin heard the knock, and assuming that it was a rival gang leader coming back to shoot Quentin, as I guess he had tried to do previously in the days beforehand, Quentin freaked out, grabbed his AK-47, and loaded more than 30 bullets into it. He then aimed the gun at the door and fired. All 30 bullets were fired at TJ, his brother, and his father. All 3 of the Darasaw men were hit. However, TJ was the only one who lost his life. Quentin was sentenced to 16 years in prison for the possession of a firearm and 30 years for the murder of TJ Darasaw. So that is everything for today's episode of Halloween week. I hope you're enjoying the series so far, and I'll catch you in tomorrow's video. Bye, guys.